Okay, good. So, and what I'm trying to do is, there's so much, there's so many sugyot in the Gemara, and there's so many classes that my father gave, and I just, I want to have the opportunity to teach as much as I can teach, to study as much as I can study, to teach as much as I can teach. So, like, I don't like skipping a week. So even though this week was Shavuot, and and I did not have the opportunity to fully prepare like I usually do, I still said let's take this 1 hour class at least to review the Surah Tishmateta, and like that at least we would be not missing a week, right? And we'll actually go a little forward in the Gemara as well. All right. So if you have now, I see that you're on the. Why don't you also open it? Do you have like a computer or something you can open it up with WhatsApp or your phone? At least your phones.
Yes.
Get your phones. You're on the group. Oh, and you opened it already. Perfect. Okay, so open it as well. Okay, so this sugya is an interesting sugya. I'm almost done mapping it out, but it starts with the petiha. The petiha takes place in surah, and Amarav Shemuel bar Yitzhak Amarav Lo shanu ela mitekanat Ezra ve'ilach. Right, that was a peticha, and the purpose of that peticha was to introduce us to a rolling series of baraitot. Right, so we introduced baraita number 1, and that's going to roll over to baraita number 2, which is going to roll over to baraita number 3, and each baraita will be the subject of a separate halak in the sugya. So you have these major halakim, right? So baraita number 1, and now if you go in the to page 2, I think, where it's I'm marking it now with my cursor, halak rishon baraita be'inyan shakelu. Okay, so that's the first part. And by the way, if I'm not being clear, please stop me. Okay, I want to make sure that I'm speaking in a clear fashion and that you're all understanding me clearly. So again, you're looking at it. You have it on your phone. Yeah. So baraita number 1, it's the baraita that is the source for shakedu, and the baraita itself has 5 parts, and you see it the way I broke down the sugya. The Tanya, number 1. מפני מה אמרו בתולה נישאת ליום רביעי. Number 2, ותנסה באחד בשבת. Number 3, ומסכנה ואילך, and so on. Okay, so you see the 5 parts of that baraita. Clear to everybody? Okay. Then we have subpart. So halek rishon, that's the baraita. This halek is divided into 3 subparts. Subpart 1 is the actual baraita, which has 5 parts. Subpart 2 is Iyun Bedin Sakana. Right? The baraita mentions Umi Sakana ve'ilach nahagu ha'am nichnos b'shelishi v'lo mihu bi'alam chachamim. So this subpart, what I have is bet Iyun Bedin Sakana, 5 comments on the laws of sakana. My sakana, right? Hay sakana onesu. Number 3, velido shehu de ones sharen. Number 4, veleikera. And finally, number 3, iachi b'shelishi. And the answer is misakana la'akal nafsheh. So you see again the number 5. Okay, let's go to subpart Gimel of Halek Rishon, which is in Iyun Bedin Ones, because the Baraita mentioned sakana. We did that. We did the Iyun and sakana. Now we're going to do the Baraita also mentions ones. Right? We said ubashani lo yichnos im yachamat ones mutar. Right? So now we have again 5 he'arot on the laws, or the law of ones. What does ones mean in the Baraita? Okay, so it's so far clear. Everybody's clear on how these on how the structure works. Again, the purpose of this class at this point is just to give you the breakdown, and I was speaking to my son Joey, the rabbi in Soho, and he told me something interesting, because he works with consulting companies, and he says that one of the things that the consulting companies do when you analyze a problem, you have to start with the Surah Tishmateta. I thought it was very interesting. He said that they want you to analyze the problem first in a structural way, and then you go into the content, right? So it's interesting how I think he called it the framework. They're looking for the framework. Before they even look for the answer, they want to see the framework of the answer. So I guess if I had to translate Surata Dishmata into English, I would call it the framework of the sugya, right? All right. Okay, so that was Halik Aleph. So Halik Aleph, again, had 3 parts. The actual Baraita, which had 5 subparts. The Ayun Bedin Sakara, which had 5 subparts. And the Ayun Bedin Ones, which had 5 subparts. So far, so good? All right, good. Let's go now to Halik Shani. Halik Shani, and I said like one Baraita rolls into the next Baraita. So the last comment was, Ve'ibad Ema Maim Hamata Ones. Kitanya. So you see how it rolls into the next Halik Rishon rolls into the next Baraita? Okay. So let's look now at Halik Shani. Halik Shani, this is a Baraita. It's not really a Baraita Be'inyan Ones. I'm going to fix it now. It's a Baraita Be'inyan Avelut. Right. I'm going to fix it now. Just give me a moment and you probably can see me making the change. Baraita Be'inyan Avelut. Okay, that's a good way of putting it. Okay. All right, so we have Halik Shani. Now this Halik Shani has, the first subpart is the actual Baraita. And this Baraita has 5 parts, right? And you see the breakdown here. The first one is describing the scenario, and the first law is Number 2, נוהג 7 ימי אבלות. Number 3, number 2, נוהג 7 ימי המשתה, my mistake. Number 3, נוהג 7 ימי אבלות, and so on. You see it. At the end of this Baraita, there is a ha'ara, there is a note. My father was of the opinion, alav shalom, that this was a Sephardic note. It doesn't matter, whoever interpolated the note, but it's a note. V'davka aviv shel chatan u'imah shel kala. Okay, that's now. Subpart 2, 5 comments on tavuah. Comment number 1, bar Efram bar Papa. Comment in the name of Rav Chisda. Comment number 2, Rava. Comment number 3, Rav Papa. And then they say, and the comment number 4, Amar Rav Asher. And finally, as you see the pattern, comment number 5 is always going to be rollover to the next Halik, to the next Baraita. So you understand the way, again, you see the rollover, right? So it's comment number 5 is Tanya Kevate de Rav Chisda. Okay? And that takes us to Halik Shalishi. Halik Shalishi is the Baraita. The third Baraita seems to be very similar to the second Baraita, except that it adds a few details, such as Natan Mayim al Kadeh Basar, such as Vechen Mi Shepirsa Ishtonita. Okay? So we have a few extra details in Baraita Gimel that you did not have in Baraita Bet. Now, the reason that they brought Baraita Gimel after Baraita Bet, we say, well, in that case, why don't you bring just Baraita Gimel and that's it? Because Baraita Gimel was a little problematic, and we dealt with some of the problems in the Baraita itself and in some of the previous classes. So that's why they bring it later. All right? Now this Baraita, interestingly enough, and now we're at Halik Gimel, right? Halik Shalishi. Halik Shalishi, Baraita, right? Al Natan Mayim al Gabe Basar. Okay, Bechule. It's not just Natan Mayim al Gabe Basar, it's whatever else, whatever the additional laws are. All right. So this Baraita had 7 parts. Like the previous Halik Bet, where you had a Ha'ara, Dafka Aviv Shel Chatan U'imah Shel Kala, and then you have the analysis. Here you have a Ha'ara that Amar Mor, מסייע לרבי יוחנן, דאמר רבי יוחנן, אף אבי שאמר אל אבלות במועד, אבל דברים ששנען אוהב. Okay. Again, interpolation, it's not germane to the sugya, that ha'ara, but it's put there, it is an important ha'ara nevertheless. Let's go to Halik, subpart 2, of this third chelek. Again, chelek shelishi, the beraita natan mayim al gabei basar. Subpart 2 has 7 questions because the beraita had 7 parts, right? And you see the, again, I have the 7 parts, you see it, right? So here you have 7 questions, but interesting, I don't think it's a coincidence. This subpart, which has 7 questions, also has 5 sources. So it kind of like ties into the previous structure of 5, right? Isn't that interesting? Right? You see that? So you have 7 questions, and we're going to read them now. We're going to read those 7 questions out. This is what we're going to kind of like take off. And there was 5 mikorot, right? I just thought it was interesting, and I'm pointing it out because I think it's, it's hard to say that's coincidental, that, the number 7 and then the number 5, right? The number 7 is parallel to the number of parts in the baraita. The number 5 is in line with the general structure of the previous parts of the sugya. All right? Interesting, no? Here there's a mistake in the way I put it in the page. Wait, no, chelek bet. One second, give me a moment. Chelek shelishi, so it should be chelek bet. It should be bet. I'm just gonna, again, I'm trying to make this less confusing. So now we have, okay. And then, again, this is the third major part of the sugya, the beraita natan mayim al gabei basar. And then it also has 3 subparts. And then you finally have, here, let me just erase the word chelek. And then you have Rav Hashem in Yeshivat Surah. And here again you have 5 statements. 5 statements. So again, you see the number 5. All right? So chelek bet, again, part B of chelek gimel had 7 questions and 5 mekorot. Part C of chelek gimel has 5 ma'amarim, 5 imrot. All right, and it's a pivot to Rav Asher and how Rav Asher understands the problem, and that's it. So now you see the sugya, you see the structure. We still have an additional part of the sugya to go. I didn't map it out yet, but I just, again, when you have the framework, it's much easier to understand what's happening in the sugya, right? So it's quite lovely, I think. Are you all ready to now enter the actual sugya? Okay. So here's what.
One thing.
Yes, please.
This is all a digression from the first question that Bettina said on Mechad, right?
Right.
Started.
I mean, well, let's put it this way, right? The Tanya, the first, it was a Tosefta that said, why don't we do it B'Yom Rishon? But actually, I would say more than that. I would say the Peticha of the Sugya led to this whole cascade of Baraitot. And I believe that they wanted to bring the question of Avelut in Masechet Ketuvot, right? So they brought, because they have the laws of Simcha, Shivat Yemei Mishteh, which was instituted by Moshe Rabbeinu, together with now Shivat Yemei Avelut as well. So you see how they're bringing it together. I think they're doing it intentionally, right? So the 2 places in the Gemara where you have this is Moed, right? Masechet Moed Katan, of course, Perek Elum Galachin, and Masechet Ketuvot. That's where the main places where you have the laws of Avelut. So I think it was done intentionally. So this whole cascade of Baraitot was done intentionally, and the Chachamim weaved it together, right? So that we have now this beautiful sugya, and it deals with many, many topics, right? As you can see, it deals with the laws of the Saudah, with the laws of the Avelut, with the laws of Niddah, as we're going to be doing now, with the laws eventually of Shabbat, and that's why Masechet Ketuvot was called by the Rishonim. They used to call it Shas Katan, like a little Shas, because it has so many different topics. Yeah.
But will the Gemara come back to the topic original, or it was closed?
Well, I mean, we'll see. Let's see what happens. Let's follow the sugya to where it takes us. Okay, wherever. Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes, of course. But let's follow the sugya. I like to follow it and see where it takes us, and then we'll do it that way. Okay. So just to find out where we are on the map, we are in Chelek Gimel. I'm not going to repeat the Tanya Kevat Derav Krista Haresha Hayeta Pito Afuya. We've read that many times. I want though to start at the bottom of Daled Amud Aleph, Darash Rabbi Yosef. I want to make sure that it's clear, and I put a recording on this Mamash before Shavuot. I made a recording. This doesn't matter. I love studying this. I love teaching it. I love learning it. So we're going to start with Darash Rabbi Yosef Pere de Rabba Mishemeh de Rabba. Aiki, would you like to start reading? And this, by the way, is the first makor. So we said this subpart 2 of Chelek Gimel is going to have 5 makorot and 7 questions. The first makor is Darash Rabbi Yosef, and actually Darash Rabbi Yosef is going to be the main topic of this subpart 2. Okay, so how about Aikis? Darash Rabbi Yosef.
דרש רבי יוסף פריה דרבה
Mishemeh deraba.
דרבה.
So he's basically he's quoting his father. So he's giving a derasha, and he probably heard his father talking about the matters discussed in our baraita. The matters being, number 1, how does the Hatan who lost the father, or the Kalla lost her mother, we saw in the Baraita that Bo'el Be'elam Nisa'u Foresh, and also we saw in the Baraita V'chen Le'inyan V'chen Misha Persa Ishto Nidda, right? So so Rabbi Yosef is giving a public derasha on this matter, okay? And he says as follows: Lo shanu.
לא שנו, אלא שלא בעל.
Okay. These laws that we're saying, how there must be a separation between the Hatan and the Kalla, that law of separation, which he's referring to his own derasha, right? He's referring to his own derasha. He's giving him a derasha, and he's quoting whatever sources he quotes, or he makes whatever statements he quotes. Because don't forget, it's a public derasha. He doesn't need to formally introduce a baraita. He doesn't need to formally start, bringing re'ayot that you do in the context of Talmidei Chachamim. This is a public derasha, so he's teaching them laws, and he's saying that there must be some sort of separation between Hatan and Kalla. And he says that I'm saying that there must be a separation. Ela shelo ba'al. It's in a situation where the husband was not with his wife yet.
אבל בעל, אשתו ישנה עמו.
But if he was already with her, then there's no need for separation, because the Yetzer Hara is far less aggressive, let's say, because he was already with her, right? Right? So that was a statement that Rabbi Yosef is making. Again, Rabbi Yosef is making in public, and he's dealing with this particular set of laws. Right? That was a derasha. All right. That's a summary of the derasha. Right? Apparently, what I would suspect is, I'm just trying to extrapolate. What I would suspect is that probably there were some people, some rabbis who said you must separate between the man and the woman. And Rabbi Yosef says, wait, hold on a second. No. Lo shanu ela shelo ba'al. No. The separation between the Hatan and the Kalla is not in all circumstances. You know how sometimes rabbis they know a little and not a lot, and then this is asur. Okay, no. So he says, so he probably was addressing that type of situation. You understand? You always have shu'alim ketanim mechabelim keramim. The question is whether the shu'alim are the rov, va'anachnu ham'at, or the other way around. But ben kach ben kach, he was probably addressing one of these shu'alim ketanim mechabelim keramim, who was being like, haram, they have to separate the man and the woman, and the hatan and the kalla. So he says, no. Lo shanu ela shelo ba'al. Aval ba'al, ishto yishna imo. Okay, you understand the law? Okay. Now let's continue. דבעל הסכינן
וקטנה הוא ישן בין האנשים.
And this is the proof that he wasn't quoting this our beraita. You want to say v'ha'acha, right? So the Gemara is saying v'ha'acha, right? So v'ha'acha deba'al. But if we look at our beraita is dealing with the situation where Baal. And nevertheless it says, because the beraita says, u'bo'el be'ilat misva u'foresh And then it says, a line after that, so here we see that our Beraita was dealing with the situation, Sheken Baal. And even though Ken Baal, it says, Yoshem ben ha'anashim, v'yeshem ben ha'anashim. Shakan Rav Yosef attacked this Shu'al Katan that was saying, Rav Yosef was saying, you're Shu'al Katan, you're making extra humrot. No, he's not making extra humrot. The Beraita says, the Beraita was talking about a case of Baal. You understand? All right?
Yeah.
So that was the first question. That was question number one. No. Kika Amar.
Where am I? Yeah, Kika Amar.
Apirsa.
Ishto nida.
When did Rav Yosef say that Im Baal Ishto Yeshena Imo? Rav Yosef was dealing with the situation of Nida, meaning he wasn't dealing with the situation of the Chatan Shemet Aviv or Kala Shemeta Ima. No, he wasn't dealing with that situation. Rav Yosef was dealing with the situation of Misha Pirsa Ishto Nida. And Misha Pirsa Ishto Nida, it's true, Shehu Yoshem ben ha'anashim, ve'yeshena ben ha'anashim, aval davka im lo ba'al. And Rav Yosef is clarifying, davka im lo ba'al, Hu Yoshem ben ha'anashim, ve'yeshena ben ha'anashim, but not im ba'al. And apparently the Shu'al Katan was dealing with the situation where Ba'al, and then he says, even though Ba'al, they have to separate. So he comes and says, no, Davka, Shelo Ba'al, they have to separate. Aval im Ba'al, no. Okay. So that was question number one, answer. Question number two.
וכן קטנה.
So you're trying to draw a distinction in the Beraita. The Beraita brings two laws. It brings one law which says, Ubo'el be'ilat misvah, that's talking about the Avel. Uforesh. Right? Hu Yoshem ben ha'anashim, ve'yeshena ben ha'nashim. That's law number one. Law number one again, Avel, ba'al be'ilat misvah, so we know the circumstances, we don't need to repeat the circumstances. And then, Hu Yoshem ben ha'anashim, ve'yeshena ben ha'nashim. The continuation of the Beraita is, V'chen misha pirsa ishto nida. Also, if a person was not Avel, but he wanted to be with his wife, Pirsa ishto nida, V'chen, what does V'chen mean? The same law that you mentioned prior in the case of the Avel applies as well in the case of Misha Pirsa ishto nida. So, V'chen katane, you want to say the question? Right? V'chen katane. So you can't tell me that the law of the second part of the second law, namely Nida, is going to be different than the law of Avel. It should be the same law. The same way Shama, in the case of Avel, ben sheba'al, ben shelo ba'al. Mechila. The same way in the that doesn't make sense what I just said. The same way in the previous case, af al pi sheba'al hu yoshem ben ha'anashim ve'yeshena ben ha'nashim. Also in the case of Nida, af al pi sheba'al hu yoshem ben ha'anashim ve'yeshena ben ha'nashim. Right. So that's question number two. Achi Kamal.
וכן מי שפרסה אשתו נדה ולא בעל, הוא ישן בין האנשים ואשתו ישנה בין הנשים.
Right, so when the word v'chen, it could mean, and many times it does mean, we have the same legal treatment, right? But it could also mean that it is the same, mechila, I misspoke. V'chen can mean one of two things, the same circumstances, or it can mean the same legal treatment, even though it's a different circumstance. So v'chen could possibly mean that the law of ben sheba'al, ben shelo ba'al applies in the case of nida, but it's not necessarily so. The law of v'chen can also mean that we have the same legal treatment, namely, mi shelo ba'al upirsa ishto nida has the same legal treatment as the Chatan Shemet Aviv Uba'al, right? So the similarity is not in the circumstance, but in the legal result. So just to summarize, in the case of Avel Chatan Shemet Aviv, Sheba'al, the legal result is what? hu yashem ben hanashim ve'yeshem ben hanashim. In the case of Misha Pirsa Ishto Nida Velo Baal, hu Yashem ben Hanashim ve'yeshem ben Hanashim. Same legal result. You understand? All right, good. So now we're going to make a interesting analysis or comparison between the laws of Avelut and the laws of Nida. Shlomo, read the next sentence. Lememra.
לממרה דאבלות קילה למנידה.
Right, in the dalet. Okay, so lememra de'avelut kila lemidita. So we can therefore, from the above, we surmise that the law of avelut in the mind of the husband is less severe than the law of nida. The Chachamim, when they make gezerot or when they make takanot, they're looking at the psychology of the people. For example, they say you can't have pat akum shel baal habayit. Why can't you have pat akum shel baal habayit? Because the Chachamim understand the psychology of the people. They're going to the goy, you enter his house, he treats you beautifully, he has a beautiful daughter. Who doesn't want their daughter to marry a Jew, right? Especially a Jewish doctor, a Jewish lawyer. He comes in, the Jew is fooled, because we always think that, people, we project our own good feelings onto others. So, yeah, they're religious, we're religious. He's a devout Catholic, I'm a devout Jew, whatever. It's like, it's beautiful. Right? It's like, you feel a sense of empathy. Okay, you feel a sense of empathy. So the Chachamim understood the stupidity. They understand that human psychology is ultimately stupid in many regards. And the guy's a daughter, oh beautiful, look at that, she's serving me tea, and wow, the last time I asked my daughter to serve me tea, she was busy, she had to go to her friends, and now, just this girl is serving me tea. So, so that's the that's the concern. So what do Chachamim do? They made a gezerah. So pat akum shel baal habayit is asur. You can't have pat akum shel baal habayit. There are psychological reasons. Now here, they're saying in the case of avelut that bo'el beilat misva uforesh hu yoshem ben ha'anashim v'yeshna ben ha'anashim. Why make that gezerah that hu yoshem ben ha'anashim v'yeshna ben ha'anashim? Madua? They're married. It's asur. It's asur to be together. Okay, but it's asur to be together because avel. So obviously we see that the Chachamim were concerned about the fact that the husband is mekel on this law. You understand? So that's why the Chachamim made a gezerah. No, you have to have shomerim. Okay, so that's lememra de'avelun kela leminida. In the case of nida, what did we say? We said in Baal, he doesn't need shomerim. He's not going to be with her because he understands it's very severe. Alright, so lememra de'avelun kela leminida. So apparently avelut in the mind of the husband is less severe than nida. And therefore avelut needs the extra shomerim, nida doesn't need the extra shomerim. So now let's analyze. This is going to be now question number 3, and this is source number 2. Veha amar Rabbi Yitzhak bar Hanina. Chavod.
Amar Rabbi Yitzhak bar Hanina, Amar Ravuna.
So this Rabbi Yitzhak bar Hanina is interesting because Rabbi Yitzhak bar Hanina, and he's a Talmid of Ravuna, which is a bit unusual. What's unusual here? Who knows? Ravuna is Bavel, Rab. Rabbi Yitzhak is Eretz Yisrael. So why is Rabbi Yitzhak bar Hanina mentioning something in the name of Ravuna? Means he studied with Ravuna, he was in the Yeshivat Surah. Apparently, Rabbi Yitzhak bar Hanina is not mentioned a lot of times in the Gemara. They probably counted on one hand. Apparently he got semicha in the Yeshiva of Rabbi Yochanan. That's why it's called Rabbi Yitzhak bar Hanina. And it seems that at some point in time he came to Babel and studied with Ravuna. So that's why you have this unusual situation of Rabbi Yitzhak. Rabbi means Me'eretz Yisrael, transmitting something in the name of Ravuna. Ravuna was the Rosh Yeshiva in Surah, Babel. Right? That seems to be the situation. Okay, so this is the second makor. And here it is. Read it. כל מלאכות
כל מלאכות שאישה עושה לבעלה, נידה עושה לבעלה.
Okay. Any melachot that a woman normally does for her husband. Can you cook me some, make me an espresso. Make me an espresso. Can you make me that? Can you clean whatever it is, whatever you usually do. I need laundry, do the laundry, iron my shirt. Everything she can do when she's niddah. Except for 3 things.
חוץ ממדיגת הכוס והסעת המיטה והרחסת פניו.
And it's really, the more proper Girsah is ורחיסת.
ורחיסת פניו וידיו ורגליו.
That's the end of the makor. That's a statement of Rabbi Yishak in the name of Rav Huna. This is the makor that kol melachot sheisha עושה לבעלה, נידה עושה לבעלה, except for these 3 things which we discussed last time. Okay, let's compare that to the third makor. ואילו גבי אבלות תניא.
ואילו גבי אבלות תניא.
So here we have makor number 3, right?
אף על פי שאמרו אין אדם רשאי לכוף את אשתו, להיות כוחלת ולהיות פוקסת, באמת אמרו מוזגת לו הכוס
ומסעת
לו המיטה ומרחצת לו פניו, ידיו ורגליו.
Okay, this is a baraita. The baraita says as follows. And this second baraita is dealing not with the laws of nidah, it's dealing with the laws of avlut. And it's saying, if a man during the woman's avelut, he can't force her to put on makeup. So she's my wife, I know she's avela, she's not supposed to be rocheset, she's not supposed to be kochelet, she's not supposed to be pokeset. She's my wife, I want her to look nice. He can't do that. אין אדם רשאי לכוף את אשתו להיות כוחלת ולהיות פוקסת. באמת אמרו, and now on this point there's no מחלוקת, there's a tradition that מוזגת לו הכוס. החזיקת הכוס? Yes. מסעת לו המיטה? Yes. רוחצת לו פניו ידיו ורגליו? Yes. Each one of these 3 things, which in the case of isha nidah, she's not allowed to do that for her husband. But in the case of avelut, she is allowed to do that for her husband. So from here we see that we're not concerned about the husband violating the laws of avelut, because we're not putting any harchakot. In the case of nidah, we say, wait, hold on. The husband might violate the nidah laws, and therefore don't be mozeket etakos. He might be intimate with you. Don't be masat et amita. Don't be roches lo panav veraglav. Stay away. So here we see from the juxtaposition of the statement of Rav Huna and the baraita, from this juxtaposition we see that what? That in his mind avelut is hamur. And you don't have to make an extra harachaka. Nidah, you might be mekel. That's why you have to say, wait, stay away from her. Stay away, because you might be mekel. So which is it? Is it that avelut kilale, as seems to be in our baraita, the baraita on Daf Gimel, Daf Daled Amud Aleph, right? Tanya kevet Rav Chisda, right? That baraita seems to suggest that avelut kilale. Here, the juxtaposition of the statement of Rav Huna and the baraita seems to suggest that nidah kilale. You understand the question? Or you want to repeat it?
One more time.
Okay. Let's look at the baraita on Daf Daled Amud Aleph. Tanya kevat Rav Chisda. Okay. In that baraita, do we allow the husband and wife to sleep together? Acharei sheba'al. She's nidah. Are we going to put shomerim in the bedroom, Aiki? Do we put shomerim? She's nidah. Do we put shomerim in the bedroom? According to the Derasha of Rav Yosef. Ba'al. Kevar ba'al.
I don't remember. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, so we said Derasha of Yosef. Lo shanu ela shelo ba'al. Right? You remember we said that? Derasha of Yosef. Lo shanu ela shelo ba'al. Aval ba'al yishto yishna imo. So we're saying that that when the woman is nidah, the husband is going to be very careful. He's not going to be with her. You don't need to put shomerim there. He doesn't need shomerim because in his mind he realizes, I'm not touching this. I'm staying away from this. He doesn't want to, doesn't want to make that avon. Okay, it's like, why do we tell a person to make a neder? A person has a problem, I don't know, he's drinking too much alcohol, so he makes a neder. Why make a neder? Because nedarim hamir aleh. He's afraid of the neder. He knows he's not going to violate the neder. He didn't lose his mind. Right, so we tell him to make a neder. Nedarim, the Pirkei Avot says, nedarim siyag la-perishut. So make a neder. Okay. Nedarim siyag la-perishut means when you want to be poresh from something, make a neder. Be very careful, by the way. Don't just make nedarim just like that. And if you ever make a neder, just make sure to write down very, very clearly mashe nadarta. Be very careful with nedarim. I'm not recommending to make nedarim. I'm just explaining the psychology. So here, in the Baraita, we said Acharei sheBa'al. Before Lifnei sheBa'al, the Yetzer Hara is too strong. So we say put shomerim, whether he's avel, whether she's nida, put shomerim. Acharei sheBa'al, in the case of avelut, what did we say? They need shomerim. Why? He might violate the avelut. In the case of nida, what did we say? Acharei sheBa'al, no shomerim. He's not going to violate the nida. Here we see that his psychology in the case of avelut, hilale. He's willing to be mezalzel in avelut. You understand?
Yeah.
Now, what do we see from the juxtaposition of the statement of Rav Huna and the Baraita? Rav Huna is saying that they both deal. Rav Huna is dealing with Isha Nida, and the Baraita is dealing with avelut. Rav Huna says Isha Nida, do not permit them, do not allow her to be mozeget lo et hakos. In the case of avelut, mozeget lo et hakos. Why? Nida, he's not allowed to be with her. Avel is not allowed to be with her. So what do we say in the case of Nida? Lo mozeget lo et hakos. In the case of avelut, mozeget lo et hakos. That means that avelut hamir aleh. We're saying he's not going to violate the laws of avelut. Let her be mozeget lo et hakos. He's not going to touch that. So you see that the psychology seems to be that avelut hamir aleh, right? So let's look at the answer.
לקשיא. כאן באבלות דידה, כאן באבלות דידה.
כאן באבלות דידה, כאן באבלות דידה. What does that mean? It means that when do we say avelut kilale? Meaning, when did we say, when we said in the Baraita, Tanya kevateh de rapista, mishemet aviv shel hatan, we were dealing with the situation where he's the avel. Where he's the avel, as in the case of the Baraita, mishemet aviv shel hatan, we said that bo'el beilat mispar u'poresh, and then hu yoshem ben ha'anashim v'yeshena ben ha'anashim. Why hu yoshem ben ha'anashim v'yeshena ben ha'anashim? Because we're worried that he might be with her. How could he be mekel? The answer is he's mekel because it's avelut tideh. Since he's the avel, he might be mekel. She's not avela, so there's nothing stopping her, and he knows there's nothing stopping her, so he might be mekel. But in the case here, where we're dealing with the Baraita, kol melachot sheisha osa leba'alaha, nida osa leba'alaha. Who's the avel in that Baraita? She's the avel. And since she is the avel, he ain't gonna start well. He didn't lose his mind. But Chazita, he just lost whoever she lost, and he's gonna want to be with her. She'll kill him. She'll do how she'll kill him, right? So he knows that. He's like, right? So again, the avelut de kilale, and that's the Baraita Daf Daled Amud Aleph. The avelut tida la kilale is going to be very careful, and that's why we say, you want to be mozeget lo et hakos, be mozeget lo et hakos. He's not going to start up with her. He didn't lose his mind. You understand? Kam be'avelut tideh, kam be'avelut tida. You understand? All right. Now we're up to question number 4. Aviv.
האביב של חתן או אימה.
By the way, is everybody following this? Does anybody have questions? If you have questions, if I'm not being clear, don't be embarrassed. Lo habayshan lamed. If anybody has questions, I'm going to take a minute. We're going to stop. Tell me if you have any questions or comments. All right. All right, good. So question number 4.
והאביב של חתן או אמה של כלה
קטנה. Question number 4. Let's go to Daf Daled Amud Aleph. Let's actually read the Baraita. You said that this Baraita is talking about a situation of Avilut Tideh. He's the Avel, not her. Okay, let's read the Baraita. Tanya Kevate de Rav Chisda. Daf Daled Amud Aleph. About halfway down the page. You have the place? Tanya Kevate de Rav Chisda. If you can't find it, give it to me. I'll help you. Yeah, you have it? תניא, כבת דרב חיסדא, הרי שהייתה פיתו אפויה ותחות הרוח ויהנו מזוג ונתן מים על גבי בשר, ומת אביו של חתן או אמה של כלה. What was that again? ומת אביו של חתן או אמה של כלה. Who's the Avel here?
Either one, no?
Either one. Either one. So what are you saying? No. Baraita is talking about Avilut Tideh. Because it's Avilut Tideh, he might be kilale. Because he might be kilale, we're making an extra chumrah that afapi sheba'al hu yoshem ben ha'anashim v'yeshna ben ha'anashim. But it says, umet aviv shel chatan o ima shel kala. The same question? Answer. Now go back to our Gemara. Right, Daf Daled Amud Bet. Answer, ki kataneh. כי קטנה השאלה. When they said met aviv shel chatan or ima shel kala, it's true. All of the laws mentioned in here, there's 7 laws mentioned in this baraita. 6 out of the 7 laws apply whether he's avel or whether she's avela, right? We said po'el bina v'israel poresh, check. Noeg shivat yemei avishte, check for both of them, right? Noeg shivat yemei avelu, check for both of them. The 4th law, kol otam yamim hu yoshem ben ha'anashim v'ishto yeshira ben ha'anashim. That's only in the case that he is avel, not in the case that she is avela. That 4th law applies specifically if he's avel, and why? Because avelut kilale, avelut tideh kilale. His avelut is going to be light for him, and because his avelut is going to be light for him, hu yoshem ben ha'anashim v'yishto yeshira ben ha'anashim. But there's no way that if he's his wife, lost her mom, she start up with her, she'll kill him, she'll divorce him on the spot, right? All right. So Ashe'era, you understand the question?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Let's do now question number 5. Chavod Aiki read. Umishane
בין אבלות tideh לאבלות tideh.
Le'avelut tideh. Okay, question number 5 is more of a theoretical. Now we are dealing with textual questions. We are looking at the text, at the language of the Baraita. We're going to do that, but first we're going to ask the following kind of theoretical question. Is it correct to make a distinction? And by the way, even when I say theoretical, I don't mean to say that there's going to be no textual source. We're going to bring a Baraita right now. But the theory is it correct to distinguish between him being an Avel and her being an Avel? Is that distinction valid? And the answer is, any theoretical question will always find its answer in the text. There is no such thing as, let's put it this way. Sevara is not really the basis for law if you have a textual source. And if you don't have a textual source, Sevara is not going to be the basis for the law either. It's going to be the basis for the law if the Beit Din decides that this is going to be the law, in which case the basis for the law will be the Pesach of the Beit Din. Sevara is not really the basis for laws. My father, Alav Shalom, discusses this in the Yunim B'Mishneh Torah, and he also discusses this in his article on Kiddush Hashem. And it's really, this point needs to be made because people mischaracterize the Talmud in a very grotesque fashion, and really based upon, I don't want to say anything mean, but it's not a justified mischaracterization of the Talmud. But anyway, so here we had a theoretical question, and of course the answer has to be in a text. So we're going to bring the Baraita. This is going to be Makor, the fourth Makor in this subsection. We said it's going to be a total of 5 Makorot. So this is Makor Dalet. Ve'atanya, read it, Aki.
והתניא, מי שמת חמיו או חמותו אינו יכול לקוף את אשתו, להיות כוחלת ולהיות פוקסת.
Okay. So yeah, the Baraita. If a person lost his father-in-law or his mother-in-law, so it's explicit. Here we're dealing with Avilut Dida. Okay. His wife lost one of her parents. So you can't force her to put on eye blush. Kohelet is the sort of like blue blush on the eye. Can't force her. Veliot pokeset. Pokeset is to braid her hair, to fix her hair nicely.
אלא כופה מיתתו ונוהג עמה אבלות.
And on the contrary, one of the laws of Avelut is Kefiyat HaMitah. I'm not sure we do that anymore today, maybe we do. But the law of Kefiyat HaMitah basically meant that you have to turn the bed upside down. They have like a diwan, so you turn it upside down. So Kofeh Mitato, he has to be Kofeh his Mitah. He has to be Nohegi Ma Avelut. He cannot, in the presence of his wife, act other than as an Avel. So therefore he has to be Kofeh his Mitah. So what has to be Kofeh Ma Mitah? It's her parents that died, not my parents. Yes, but the proper Jewish Derech Eres, with Pesach Halacha, I mean not just Derech Eres, it's Derech Eres that was that became law, so to speak. He has to be Noheg Avelut Befanea. We don't do this so much today. For whatever reason, I'm not saying it's good or bad that we don't do this. I'm just describing the reality, right? But the real classical halacha, the correct halacha is noheg avelut befaneha, and therefore kofeh mitato v'noheg ema avelut. That's if she's avela. What about the reverse?
וכן היא שמת חמיה או חמותה אינו רשאה להיות כוחלת ולהיות פוקסת. So
we see that there is a perfectly balanced relationship between her avelut, where he must be kofeh mitato, where she may not put on makeup, even though he wants her to put on makeup, where he must act avelut ima, and the other way around, where he's the avel, she may not put on makeup. Why can't she put on makeup? Because he has to be noheg. She has to be noheget avelut befanav. You understand? She has to be kofah mitata. Why does she have to be kofah mitata? He's avel. Because she has to be noheget avelut befanav. Right? That's the beraita. So here we see in the beraita that there is no basis, legal basis, for the distinction between whether he is an avel or she is the avel. You wanted to say that in the case that he is the avel, kilale, the question of relations with his wife is light in his mind, and he might violate it, and therefore we said, wait, hu yoshem ben ha'anashim ve'yesh la ben ha'anashim. But if she's avela, the law of hu yoshem ben ha'anashim ve'yesh la ben ha'anashim does not apply. So you want to create this imbalance between avelutida and avelutida. But here we see in this beraita, is intentionally comparing she being avel to him being avel, and we don't see this disparity. We don't see a difference in the treatment. You understand?
Yeah.
All right. Answer. Teneh.
So
Teneh, if you want to, what they're saying is, we're going to make a footnote on this baraita, and the footnote is going to be in addition to the second part of the baraita, where it says, he shemet chamia o chamota en arasha liot kochelet. At the end of the baraita, where it says v'noheget imo avelut, you would add hu yoshem ben ha'anashim v'ishto yeshena ben ha'anashim. Hu yoshem ben ha'anashim ואשתו ישנה בין הנשים. Okay, I'm going to explain this a little more later. Today I'm just trying to go through the sugya, the basic flow, and the basic back and forth. We're going to explain it a little more later. What does it mean? Teneh, hu yoshem ben hanashim, ve'ishto yoshem ben hanashim. But that's what it says. It says, add a footnote to the beraita, which creates a disparity in the treatment between when she is avela, lo tzarich lishon ben hanashim, or you don't lishon benim, or when he is avelut kila leh, and therefore in that case, hu yoshem ben hanashim, ve'ishto yeshena ben hanashim. Okay? So create this disparity. Mm-hmm. Now the base, and even before we get to next week, there is a kelal that Tana darko lekaser ve'emora darko lefaresh. One of the kelalim in the Talmud is that it is when the Tanaim would formulate the laws, the halachot, they would often their objective was to formulate it in a very brief and dense linguistic fashion. The purpose of the dense linguistic formulation, again, we said this many times, is because they used to study the halachot be'al peh, they used to study the beraitot be'al peh. The Emoraim, their main objective was to explain the statements of the Tanaim. And therefore, when the Emoraim would speak, they would not speak in a cryptic fashion. So part of what's happening here when it says Teneh ba'avelut bideh hu yashem ben hanashim yashem ben nashim is based on the fact that you can't bring me from the beraita and say, oh, there's a perfect balance and this is as it appears, because no, it's not always, the beraitot are not always as they appear, right? So again, we'll discuss this more next week. I want to try to finish till the end of this part. So next week we can do some further analysis. Continue. וכן קטנה. There's a problem with this footnote. Okay, granted. Tana darko lekaser. Very nice. We accept that. You can't add a footnote to a beraita which would make the beraita what's the word I'm looking for? It would create certain discord within the existing language of the beraita. The discord in this case is based on the word v'chen. Why would you say v'chen? It says v'noheg ima avelut. Period. He shemet achamia o chamota. Why don't you say v'chen he shemet achamia o chamota? Say mi shemet chamim o chamoto and יכול לקוף את אשתו. Right? Mi shemet חמיה או חמותה, אין הרשע להיות כוחלת. What does it have to say וכן? התנה דרכו לקסר. So don't tell me, oh, they added extra word there. If תנה דרכו לקסר, then why וכן? The answer is, there's only one answer to וכן. To indicate that there's a balance between how the woman is treated by her husband. When the woman is avela, the husband does ABC. And how the husband is treated by his wife, that she does whatever she does when he's avel, and there is no disparity. The word v'chen means there is a balance between the husband and the wife. The avelut of the wife is the same treatment as the avelut of the husband, and therefore you cannot add this footnote, because this footnote would cause a certain discord in the existing text. You can add a footnote to a text where it doesn't disturb the existing text. You can't add a footnote to a text where it disturbs the existing text. You understand? So that's why. וכן קטנה. All right. Answer.
כי קטנה הכיחול.
הכיחול. והפרקוס. No. So there's a tohat, but the Gemara says the v'chen, yes, it is creating a balance. It's specifically with respect to the question of makeup. You would think as follows. Since he is avel, she should be able to put on makeup. She's going to be nabelet in the eyes of her husband. So it's a v'chen. In the question of makeup, there's a perfect balance. When she is avela, the husband cannot insist, hey, I'm not Avel. I don't want to see you ugly like this. Put on your lipstick. When he's Avel, right? The wife says, the husband says, I don't want to see you ugly like this. Vechen, you understand? So the vechen, according to this explanation, the vechen comes to create a balance, not between all laws of avelut as it relates to husband and wife being avel in case A, husband being avel in case B, but specifically with respect to makeup. That's where the issue was, and that's where the vechen comes. Continue. This is question number 7. Remember we said there's 7 questions because of Baraita that we're analyzing has 7 parts. Question number 7.
והאמו קטנה.
מה אליו אמו במיטה?
מה אליו אמו במיטה?
לא, אמו בבית. Okay, let me explain this. If you look at the Baraita, it says as follows. ונוהגת אמו אבלות. What does it mean ונוהגת אמו אבלות? So he's Avel, right? And it says ונוהגת אמו. So what ונוהגת אמו אבלות? What does imo mean? Now, the word, and it's important to understand that you can't ignore words, right? You have to give some meaning to the word. You have a shetar in the Bet Din, and somebody points out that there's a word here, and the word has to have some meaning. Now, he tells her that, I want to know what this word means. You're telling me I owe $100, but there's this word. Explain to me this word. You have to explain the word, right? So here we have the Beraita, Benoheget imo avelut. He is Avel, and she's with him. Benoheget imo. It's Benoheget imo avelut. I can give you an explanation. Imo b'mita. She can be together. She can't be. They can't have relations, but she can be. They could be alone in the bedroom. That's an explanation. Now again, who's the Avel when it says Benoheget imo avelut? He's the Avel. He's the Avel. But wait, hold on 1 second. If he's the Avel, I thought you said that in the case where it's Avelut Dideh Kilale, and therefore we have to have Shomerim. But here it says, Venoheget imo Avelut. Ma'elav imo b'mita, no Shomerim. They have Shomerim in the bed, right? Ma'elav imo b'mita. So the answer is no. Imo babai. Imo babai, no. I'll give you the meaning of the word imo. You want to give the meaning of the word imo, that they're together in bed and they don't have shomerim. No, I can give you an alternative meaning to what the idea of imo is, and it's as follows. This is makor he, the 5th makor. All right. So again, we had 7 questions, 7 answers, 5 mikorot. The 7 again connected with the Beraita, which has 7 parts. The 5 mikorot connected with the larger sugya, which is always 5, 5, 5, and 5. Okay? Read the 5th makor. Okay, so Rav, he called his son Chiyah. Obviously, his uncle Rabbi Chiyah, he called his son after the name of his uncle Rabbi Chiyah. There's a story in the Yevamot Samech Gimel, Amud Aleph, on the bottom of the page. There's a story there that Rav, he had trouble with his wife. He would ask for a fool, and he would tell his son Chiyah, go tell mommy I want fool. So she would make him hummus instead. So then would tell his son Chiyah, go tell mommy I want hummus. So she would make him fool. Whatever he asks, she makes it the opposite. So the son was very clever, and he realized what's happening, and he wanted to have shalom, obviously, between his parents. So his father would say, make me fool. He would go to his mom and say, make him hummus. She would make him fool. So he tells his son, make me hummus. He would tell his mom that he wants fool. She would make him hummus, right? So whatever. He was very clever. So Rav tells his son, you see here, Baruch Hashem, your mom, really, she's becoming an Eshet Chai. Your mom is becoming a good woman. It's beautiful. Chiyah tells his father, listen, I just want to tell you It's me. I've been switching everything. So Rav tells Hiya, he tells his son Hiya, he says, listen, very nice, but you're not supposed to lie. Don't lie. So that's the story of Hiya Bere, his son Hiya, named after the uncle. And now what happened is Hazid, Hiya, he got married and his wife died. He got married and Hiya's wife died. His father was alive, and his father gave him the following instructions. By the way, as long as we're dealing with that Gemara, I'm sorry, I know it's completely not related. If you continue in the Gemara in Samech Gimel Amud Bet in Yevamot, it brings there a whole series of Pesukim from Sefer Ben Sira. I'm just mentioning that because they said that Sefarim Chisoniyim, if you read the Sefarim Chisoniyim, En Lo Chalek L'Olam Haba, and they make a big deal about this, and clearly reading Sefarim Chisoniyim can't be as everybody interprets it, because if it was as everybody interprets it, how can the Gemara in Samech Gimel Amud Bet Yevamot bring all these Pesukim? One of the Pesukim it brings is, it's in Hebrew, I'm saying it in Hebrew. Isha Tova Matana LeBa'ala. If you have a good wife, that's a gift from God. God gave you a beautiful gift. Just one of the Pesukim brought there. Anyway, let's get back to our sugya. Okay, we're going to be finished in about 10 minutes. Veha imo katanesh. This is my love imo bamita, la imo babai. It means they can be together in that. What do you mean imo babai? So what does that mean? No. It means she's with him, meaning she's with him in the avelut. You understand the idea of imo babai? Meaning when she's with him in the house, she's gonna be doing avelut. You understand? You understand the way imo babai means? It means v'noheget imo avelut means when she's with him physically in the same room, that she has to do avelut. And that's what Rav tells his son. Kid Amale, I'm going to read it. Kid Amale Rav Hiya Dere. Rav tells his son Hiya, who was his wife. Be'apa nehoga veluta. When you're with her, meaning in the same room, ima babayit, right? Then you have to be aved. Dela be'apa. If you're not with her in the bayit, la nehoga veluta. You're going outside. You want to, I don't know, whatever. Do whatever you're going to do. You're going to do whatever you want. It's allowed. Because only be'apa, only in her presence, and when you're in babayit, you know, I got veluta. You know, that's a very beautiful explanation of the baratan. It makes much more sense than the idea of imo, meaning bamita. Why imo bamita? Ima, right? All right. Now, so to summarize, this part is drawing a distinction between avelut dideh, where אף על פי שבעל הוא יושן בין האנשים והיא ישנה בין הנשים. In אבלות דידה, where the husband didn't lose his mind and he's not going to start up with his wife when she lost her mom. Right? And therefore you don't have the law of הוא יושן בין האנשים והיא ישנה בין הנשים. That's the second subpart. Again, we're looking at Chelek Gimel, the major Chelek Gimel, third Baraita, Tanya Kevetet Rav Chisda. We just did this Part B, subpart B, where we analyze the Derasha Rav Yosef and we compare the laws of Avelut to the laws of Nidah. And now we are going to pivot. Rav Asher, the final generation of Emoraim, is going to give a completely different explanation to the matter. Okay? He's going to give a completely different explanation to the matter. Why it appears the Memra the Avelut Kilale. We're going to see how Rav Asher interprets it. And this part is going to have 5 ma'amarot. That's the only structural relationship I see between this part and the other parts. It has exactly, again, the number 5 ma'amarot. And you're going to see the proof that it was intentional. I'm going to prove it to you that the number 5 was intentional. You'll see it in a moment. Everybody's okay with us going into overtime? Yes? Yeah, I know we said 9:30, but it could be probably closer to 10. All right. All right. So, Chavod Shlomo, read. This is subpart Gimel of Chelek HaShelishi. We're still, again, we started out with a beraita, hu yashen, yeshena. Then we now, we're going to Yeshivat Surah, the last generation. Rav Asher was the Rosh Yeshiva, and he is going to introduce a completely new approach to the matter. Chavod Shelomo. Rav Asher Amar. That's right, Rav Asher Amar. Why Rav Asher Amar, not Amar Rav Asher? He disagrees with the aforementioned analysis. Disagrees. Okay, Rav Asher Amar.
רב אשר אמר,
מי כמדמה
כמדמת אבלותא דהכה דאבלותא דעלמא
לאבלותא דעלמא.
לאבלותא דעלמא.
Again, I'm going to read it now. Let me read it and then you read it with me. First me. רב אשר אמר, מי כמדמת אבלותא דהכה לאבלותא דעלמא. Now, all of us together. רב אשר אמר, מי כמדמת אבלותא דהכה לאבלותא דעלמא. Continue. אבלותא דעלמא.
דעלמא חמיר ולא אתה לדלדולי אבלות דהכה כיוון דאכילו רבנן אתי לדלדולי.
Okay, very good. He says as follows. You're comparing Avelutah dehacha. You're comparing the Avelut in the case of the husband who lost his father, or in the case of the Kalla who lost her mom, le Avelutah de'alma. What did you say? You said that from our baraita it comes out the Avelut kilaleh. Right? Why? How do we know Avelut kilaleh? Because we said, Hu Yoshem ben Anashim, V'yeshna ben Anashim. The Hachamim were concerned that he's going to be mezalzel in the Avelut, and therefore they separate them completely. What type of you're drawing a conclusion from the case of Hatan that married a Kalla, and we give them Shiv'a Yemei Mishteh, and it's a Yemei Mishteh now. And in his mind, this is Yemei Mishteh. The Avelut is starting in another week. Of course, in his mind, Kilaleh. Obviously, Kilaleh. He didn't even start the Avelut yet. The Chachamim say, no, wait, hold on 1 second. Poresh, you can't be with her anymore. Why Poresh? It's my Yemei Simcha. I don't want to be Poresh. So that's why in his mind, Kilaleh. Obviously. You understand the point? It's not a regular Abel. It's not a regular Abel. Husband of Adam. The guy's Abel. He lost his father. Guy's like, okay. And he's Yoshev. Now he's Yoshev. Bury. Immediately you bury. And you Kiri'ah. You bury. You start the Avelut. Obviously in his mind he understands he's Avel. He's not going to be over on the Avelut. Avelut Alma. That's Avelut Alma. So in Avelut Alma, you're right. She can be Mozeget Lo Tachos. He's not going to violate the Avelut. She can be Masad Lo Tamita. He's not going to violate the Avelut. Right? She can be Rohes Lo Panav Adav V'Naglav. He's not going to violate the Avelut. He's an Avel. What is he? Out of his mind. He's going to violate his own Avelut. He lost his father, his mother, whatever. And now he's going to violate the Avelut. So of course you can do these things for Melachot for him. In Nidah, like Yasser Hara, whatever, okay. He's Abel, he's going to violate it? No. But in the case of the Hatan that lost his father, or the Kalla lost her mother, they're doing Shivat Yemei Mishteh now. He's not in the psychological state of an Abel. He was told, stop the Avelut, don't even start the Avelut, wait, delay it till later. So in his mind he's saying, if I'm delaying the Avelut till later, why can't I be with her? I'm not an Abel, I should be with her. Maybe not sure. Okay, let's see. So they say, Hu Yoshem ben Anashim, Ve'i Yeshna ben Anashim. You understand? Very brilliant point of Rav Asher. Rav Asher Amar, I'm going to read it again. Oh, let's read it all of us together. Rav Asher Amar, Mika medamet, Avelutah de'acha, Le'avelutah de'alma. How are you making the comparison of the Avelut in the case of the Baraita where he's enjoying Shivat Yemei Mishteh, Le'avelutah de'alma, where he's mamash Avel. Avelutah de'alma, Amir, Le'la'ate, Lezilzulebe. When he's really in Avel, he lost his father. He's not going to be mezalzel. So yeah, his wife can be mozeket lo takos, no problem. Avelut de'acha, kevan de'akilu rabbanan, atel izalzule. But here in this avelut, where he's sitting yeshivat yemei mishteh, and the hachamim were already mekilim, he understands this isn't real avelut, and therefore he might end up being with her. And that's what the hachamim say. Hold on, hu yoshem ben anashim, ve'yeshera ben anashim. Please do not be mezalzelim in our laws. All right. I said I have a question. My Shlomo, my kulla. Okay, now what's specific when you say that the Chachamim hekelu in this avilut? What specifically do you mean Chachamim hekelu in this avilut? My kulla. Let's be precise. Again, one of the problems with modern Pesach halacha, they have, for example, they always have kelalim. They have question and halacha. There's a kelal, safek sfeka, and there's another kelal, like safek toraita l'chumna. So they bring another kelal, and they bring a fifth kelal and a seventh kelal. The final kelal is en lomdim min kelalim. Okay, fine, but that they always forget that kelal. But there's no. It's the analysis. Many times they don't make a precise analysis. So fine, you Rav Asher came up with a brilliant idea. He said, Avelut te'acha atel ezazuleh, because there's a kula. So we have to be precise. What specifically do you mean by kula? Very important to understand things in a very precise way. Otherwise you can't make a yun, right? You can't really make a yun. So, my kula. Ilema
דקתנה פועל בעילת מצווה ופורש.
Maybe that's the kula, because you said he can be bo'el be'ilat mitzvah. Normally, of course, an avel cannot be bo'el be'ilat mitzvah. Here, we didn't really start the avelut. We delayed the avelut, and therefore bo'el be'ilat mitzvah uporesh. Maybe that's the kula. You're saying that he should be bo'el beforehand. Mm-hmm. And this is the second ma'amar that we brought. The first one was Rav Asher Amar. The second one is the Baraita. Hatam.
Mishum delachal alav aviluta.
So that's not really a kula. The reason bo'el bilat mitzvah uforesh is because the avilut lo chala. Since avilut lo chala, well, yeah, bo'el bilat mitzvah. You understand? Meaning that's not a kula, right? So what did Rav Asher mean when he said that avilut tehacha akilu rabbanan? What's the kula? Apparently that was a kula. He said no, that's not the kula. Lo chal avilut. And remember I said I'm going to bring.
That's why we go out of our way to say machnisin et hamet lacheder. Why do you have to say that?
Yeah.
So we know, don't bury him first. Even though you're going to have Shibat Yimei HaMishteh, have Ba'ilat Mitzvah first, leave the dead body in the house. Then, Kasher Horesh, then we go to the cemetery. Then we suspend the Shibat Yimei HaBelut for the Shibat Yimei HaMishteh.
Exactly and precisely correct. We insist that the Be'ilah is before they bury him, because after they bury him, Chala Be'avelut. Unless he was, now he started the Shivat Yemei Mishteh, Machnisa LaChuppah, Konsa, brings her into the house, okay, they start the Shivat Yemei Mishteh, and at this point, when they bury him, the Avilut cannot be Chala anymore on the Simcha, exactly. Now remember I said that I'm going to bring you a Re'ayah that the number 5 is intentional. The Re'ayah is here. It says, Bo'el bilat Nisra uforesh. Hatam mishum de lo chal aveluta, ala aveluta. Il Rabbi Eliezer ad she'yasem beto. Il Rabbi Yehoshua ad she'yisatem ha'golal. And why do you have to bring these two hachamim? Whatever hal the avelut, right? Whatever hal or hal ala aveluta. It says no. Il Rabbi Eliezer. It brings the machlok of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua. I think because they want to bring 5 ma'amarot. You see, you see it right there. So now I'm going to explain it. So uporesh. Hatam, the reason that he is bo'el bilat mitzvah is mishum de lo chal alav aveluta. And there's a machloket me'ematai hal ha'avelut, right? For Rabbi Eliezer, she'yisem mipetach beto. You go to start, yisem mipetach beto, you want to bury the manoah or the manocha, that's the avelut starts. The Rabbi Yoshua, no. When you actually finish sealing the cave, they used to bury it in a cave, in a niche in the wall, and they roll the stone to be sotem de golal, right? Or in our days, let's say a regular, underground, whatever. So they fill up the hole, they seal it with soil, whatever it is, right? So ilir Eliezer is ma'amar gimel, ilir Rabbi Yoshua is ma'amar dalet, actually sotem de golal. Ela, what's the answer? I can finish it off. The kataneh.
The portion.
אלא דקתנא נוהג שבעת ימי המשתה, ואחר כך נוהג שבעת ימי האבלות. The kula is that we allow them to do שבעת ימי המשתה after שבעת ימי האבלות. Let me explain to you this law, why this is a kula. It's true that in the case of moed, if a person, let's say somebody passed away on Chol HaMoed Pesach, let's say. Now we say that we say since there's a Simcha Shel Rabim, a national holiday, the Avelut of Yachid is not going to push away the national holiday. This is a point that I've been repeating several times over the last few classes, but here we see this is not a Simcha Shel Rabim. Shivat Yemei Mishneh is not Simcha Shel Rabim. Why doesn't the Avelut push the Simcha? Why not? Ate Avelut Yachid, Bedacheh, Simcha Shel Yachid. That's the Kula. And you see how clever the Kula is? Because it's an equal shikul. In the case of Simcha Shel Rabim, of course, you're already in the Simcha Shel Rabim, the Avelut Yachid is not going to push it away. Here you're in a Simcha of Yachid. Should the Avelut of Yachid push the Simcha of Yachid? Kula. No. In this case, it won't push the Simcha. Noheg Shivat Yemei HaMishteh, Hagaf Noheg Shivat Yemei Avelut, and that's a Kula that Rav Hashem was referring to, and the point, therefore, being clear that the person, the husband, is realizing, whoa, I'm not really Abel, am I? And therefore, right? So they say, so this is the end of Perek Gimel. I believe there might be one or 2 points that I wanted to repeat next class, but at least I wanted to go over this chelek and finish it. So next class we could make some further progress. Any questions?
Yeah, one comment. So the kula is only when the seudah is beyond the point of no return, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Any of those.
Yes.
But otherwise, you wouldn't even have the Shivat Yemei HaMishteh. You would abandon the wedding because all that could be resold, or you don't have to use it. It's only now that it would rot if you don't use it, and no one's going to want it. That's a special kula, right? That's an extra.
Right, which goes back to the thing of shakedu. Hachamim were shakedu, and they recognize that if the guy just, spent $10,000, whatever he spent, and now he's going to lose everything, he might not be able to make a second sa'udah. So shakedu, this all ties us back to shakedu, but it's true. Meaning, let's say there was no loss. Let's say that lo natu mayim al gabe basar, lo afu et hapat, and so on. In that case, no. We're not going to let them say go on with the wedding and everything is okay. No. You stop what you were doing. Now you know, bury the body. No halana tamed. Bury the body and immediately start the avilut, and you could do the wedding afterwards. Correct. But because of shakedu, and that they're going to be losing the seudah, we're endangering shakedu. We don't want to endanger shakedu. So shakedu hachamim, we see the power of shakedu hachamim. It all ties in Shemuel. If you remember the question you asked, everything is related to shakedu at the end of the day. All right, good. I'm happy we did this. I think it was. Yes, you had a question? I'm sorry, David.
Yes, I'm just noticing an idea, but I'm trying to figure out if this is true. But is it possible that the 7 questions have a chiastic structure?
You have to elaborate. I'm not sure what that means.
So I noticed immediately that number 2 and number 6 are both veha vechen katane. It's the same exact question. Second question, second to last question.
Yep, I see it.
In both 3 and 5, we're bringing a separate source as a question. So now it seems to be. It's a thought that it just popped in my head. I'm trying to see if it's possible that this is the beginning of an idea that's actually there. That there actually might be a chiasm structure that Chris will help us remember or something.
Well,
By
if you
chiasm, he means ABBA or ABC.
Yeah.
CBA.
ABCCBA.
Like a mirror image, but the sequence is mirrored. Instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you go 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1.
Interesting. So, thank you. Yeah, so you can, if you develop that idea, feel free to share it on the WhatsApp group. It'll be interesting to see that for sure. All right.
Don't these questions were discarded when Rabbi Shea said you can't compare.
I mean, no, Rav Asher, wait. We have the discussion of the yeshiva. We saw the discussion that took place before Rav Asher. Comes Rav Asher and he takes a completely different approach to the whole thing. So from the perspective of Rav Asher, there's a difference between avilut de'acha'ah and avilut de'alma. It makes perfect sense. Yes. All right.
Make a big difference between the law of avilut didei and avilut didah.
Right, exactly. We don't need that. We don't need to make that distinction anymore. Exactly. That distinction between avilut didei and avilut didah is rejected by Rav Asher. Correct.
Right.
All right. Very good. So, betov talinu. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.